Well, as businesses gear up for sanctions against Iran to be lifted, some are concerned the deal could leave them worse off. India did not take part in U.S. and EU-led sanctions on Tehran, and as a result, saw its exports boom. Now some Indian exporters are concerned they will face stiff global competition for trade with Iran. Let's get more now from CNN's New Delhi bureau chief, Ravi Agrawal. He joins us live from the Indian capital. And Ravi, how important is this Iranian market? I don't think a lot of people realize this was happening, and what exactly are business owners telling you?
Hi, Maggie. It is a pretty important relationship, especially for Iran. Remember, India is the third biggest trading partner for Iran, so India really does matter for Iran. But let me just explain to you why Indian businessmen are actually worried about the nuclear deal that was struck this week. So in the last few years, as the United States and the EU have stopped trading with Iran because of these sanctions, India has actually continued to import oil from Iran, but much more than that, it has been exporting more and more to an Iran that is increasingly isolated. In the last 4 or 5 years, so between 2009 and 2013, exports between India and Iran doubled. And so a lot of Indian businesses have really been doing very well, and they're very worried now about having to deal with more competition from the EU and the United States. Listen in to this soundbite from one person I spoke to this morning in New Delhi.
What I'm worried about is, of course, the competition which is going to come from European and US countries. At the same time, I'm optimistic because the demand is actually going to go up. The country is going to improve. I'm happy for Iran that ultimately, after these long years, they are going to have a good time.
So as you can see, Maggie, that it's a bit of a mixed picture for Indian businesses. They're worried about more competition from the United States and the EU, but at the same time, they realize that the pie is going to get bigger.
That's right, and that's important. And they do have that first mover advantage in some ways, established relationships I'm sure they're going to try to hang on to. Rob, you also mentioned oil, and that is so important when you pull the lens out for India overall. I mean, they are an oil importer. The idea that this deal could, keep a lid on oil prices, presumably very good news for that economy and for Modi.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, right after the deal was announced, we saw that oil prices fell by about 3%, and that is very good news for India here. India, obviously a big net importer of oil, and it's also important to point out that a lot of the Indian refineries on the western coast of India are actually specifically designed to receive Iranian crude. So they've been struggling for a number of years now, and they'll be looking for more Iranian crude to hit the markets so that they can fuel a very power-hungry India. So that side of things is good news for India. The Indian the finance ministry here has pointed out that for every dollar fall in the price of global crude, India saves about $1 billion every year. So all of that combined, even though some businesses aren't happy, is good news for India.